She was 7 months pregnant when she found the calendar reminder on his laptop, a luxury condo he leased for another woman. A 5-carat diamond ring she had never seen. 2 first-class tickets to St. Bart's, booked for the week her doctor said she could not fly. And the worst part? He was paying for all of it with their unborn baby's trust fund. Most women would have screamed. Most women would have confronted him that night. Sophia Thorne did neither. She closed the laptop, walked to the kitchen, and smiled when he kissed her goodbye on his way to his mistress. For the next 4 weeks, she played the perfect, oblivious, pregnant wife. She discussed nursery colors. She let him drive her to doctor appointments while he texted the other woman from the waiting room. She cooked dinners he never stayed to eat, and every single night, after he left, she was on the phone with the most expensive divorce attorney in Boston, quietly dismantling her husband's entire empire. He never suspected a thing. When she handed him the divorce papers, he actually laughed. He signed them in under 5 minutes, thinking he had won the deal of a lifetime. He had no idea that by Monday morning, he would own nothing. Not the penthouse, not the company, not even the car in the parking garage. And his mistress? She collapsed on the boardroom floor when she found out the diamond on her finger was being repossessed. This is the story of how a pregnant wife quietly filed for divorce and walked away with everything. This story will teach you the most dangerous person in any room is not the one who is shouting. It is the one who is silent and thinking. Sophia's story is a reminder that your greatest power is not in your reaction. It is in your patience. It is in your ability to stay quiet when every part of you wants to scream and to move with precision when the moment is right. If you have ever been underestimated, if you have ever been overlooked, if anyone has ever mistaken your silence for weakness, this story is for you. Now, if you are ready, settle in, because this one is going to keep you on the edge of your seat for the next 90 minutes. And when you get to the part where she hands him that pen, trust me, you are going to want to pause and tell someone about it. So go ahead, share this video right now with someone who needs to hear this story today. Hit that subscribe button so you never miss another one. Drop a comment and tell me, would you have had the patience to wait 4 weeks? Or would you have confronted him that first night? I read every single comment, and I cannot wait to hear what you think. Let us get into it. The pen did not shake in her hand. 7 months pregnant, Sophia Thorne stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of their Boston penthouse, one hand resting on the curve of her belly, the other holding a cup of decaf tea that had gone cold 20 minutes ago. The city stretched below her like a postcard, all glass and ambition, and from up here, 42 floors above the street, everything looked small. The cars, the people, the lives being lived down there by women who probably knew where their husbands were at night. Behind her, Marcus was on the phone. He was always on the phone. His voice carried that particular tone she had come to recognize over the past 3 years. The one that was warm and laughing, and directed at someone who was not her. He was confirming a dinner reservation. She knew, with the quiet certainty that settles into a woman's bones long before her mind catches up, that the reservation was not for them. 8 o'clock, the private room, and make sure the champagne is already on the table when we arrive. She likes it cold. She, not we. She. Sophia took a sip of her cold tea and said nothing. The Thorne penthouse felt less like a home and more like a showroom. Everything was marble and glass and sharp corners. Coasters were mandatory. Emotions were vacuum sealed. There were no family photographs on the walls, only the kind of abstract art that costs 6 figures and means nothing. Marcus had picked every piece. Sophia, who had once been an art curator, who had spent years learning to see beauty in brushstrokes and light, had not been consulted on a single one. She had been dazzled once, she could admit that. Marcus Thorne had swept into her life like a weather system, all charm and confidence and the kind of ambition that felt electric when you were standing close to it. He was handsome in the way of expensive suits and inherited jawlines. He had taken her from a struggling art curator, sharing a studio apartment in Cambridge, to the wife of one of Boston's most aggressive young entrepreneurs. The elevation had been dizzying. The view from the top had seemed limitless. Now, 7 months into a high-risk pregnancy, the gleam had faded. The floor-to-ceiling windows did not make her feel powerful. They only showed her how high she was and how far she had to fall. Marcus ended his call and walked into the kitchen, his shoes clicking on the marble. He was dressed for going out, not for staying in. His suit was charcoal gray, his tie loosened just enough to suggest casual authority. He smelled like cologne she had not bought him. "Big night, Soph," he said, pouring himself a glass of water without looking at her. "The new fund is almost ready to launch. Dinner with some investors. On a Tuesday? Money doesn't care what day it is." He smiled, and it was the kind of smile that used to make her heart skip. Now it made her stomach tighten. "Don't wait up." "I won't," she said. He kissed the top of her head on his way to the elevator, and his lips felt like a stamp, a mark of ownership rather than affection. The elevator doors closed, and the penthouse was silent. Sophia stood there for a long moment, listening to the silence. Then she set down her tea, walked to Marcus's home office, and sat down at his desk. She was not a suspicious woman by nature. She was the daughter of a forensic accountant, a man who had raised her on the gospel of trust but verify. For months she had been trusting. The late nights, the phone angled away from her on the sofa, the faint scent on his jacket that was neither his cologne nor her perfume. She had trusted, and she had waited, and she had told herself she was imagining things. Tonight she was done trusting. Tonight she would verify. Marcus's personal laptop, the one that was for his eyes only, was open on the desk. A notification had pinged while he was getting dressed. It was not a text message. It was a calendar reminder from a shared account he had clearly forgotten existed. Sophia read it. Chloe, final walkthrough, location, 114 Beacon Street, apartment 6B. Notes, surprise for C. Make sure the champagne is on ice. Call the jeweler. Reference number 884B to confirm delivery. Her blood ran cold. 114 Beacon Street was not an office building. It was a new, obscenely expensive condominium complex that had been featured in Boston Magazine last month. Sophia navigated to his email. Her fingers were steady. Her heart was not. He had not just bought a condo. He had leased it, fully furnished, for 2 years. The lease was in his name, paid for through a corporate account she did not recognize. A quick search for the jeweler's reference number brought up a file on his hard drive. The receipt was for a 5-carat canary diamond ring, a ring she had never seen, a ring that was not for her. But the final blow, the one that turned her blood from cold to ice, was in his travel folder. 2 first-class tickets to St. Bart's, departing in 3 weeks. The time when she would be entering her 8th month, forbidden from flying by her doctor. The passenger names were listed clearly. Marcus Thorne, Chloe Bennett. Sophia sat back in the chair. She placed both hands on her belly. The baby shifted, a slow, lazy roll, completely oblivious to the fact that his father was building a new life with another woman. She did not cry. The shock was too sharp, too clean, like a surgeon's cut. She navigated back to the bank statements. This was where the shock turned to something else entirely. Something harder, something with teeth, the legacy discretionary fund. She knew what it was. Arthur Thorne Sr., Marcus's father, had established it years ago. It was not a personal account. It was a trust fund specifically designated for the next generation of Thornes, for grandchildren, for her baby. Marcus had been pulling from it for months. The condo lease, the jeweler, the first-class tickets, the champagne. He was not just cheating on his pregnant wife. He was spending his unborn child's inheritance on his mistress. Sophia heard the distant hum of the building's ventilation system. She heard her own breathing, slow and controlled. She closed the laptop with the same careful precision with which she had opened it. She walked back to the kitchen and poured her cold tea down the drain. When the penthouse intercom buzzed with the doorman confirming Marcus had left the building, Sophia did not move. She stood at the kitchen island, both hands flat on the cold marble, and she stared at the wall. She was not thinking about Chloe Bennett. She was not thinking about the Canary Diamond or the first-class tickets or the champagne on ice. She was thinking about the number on the bank statement, $150,000, pulled from her child's future, spent on a woman who was not his mother. And in that moment, standing alone in a penthouse that had never felt like home, Sophia Thorne made a decision. She was not going to scream. She was not going to cry. She was not going to confront her husband and give him the chance to lie, to charm, to manipulate. She was going to be quiet. She was going to be precise. And she was going to take everything. But first, she was going to fall apart. Just once. Just tonight. In private. She walked to the master bathroom and locked the door. The bathroom tile was cold. Sophia lowered herself carefully, one hand bracing against the edge of the bathtub, the other cradling her belly. It was not graceful. Nothing about being 7 months pregnant was graceful. She sat with her back against the tub, her legs stretched out in front of her, and she let the cold seep through the thin cotton of her nightgown. And then she cried. Not the way women cry in movies with photogenic tears and trembling lips. Sophia cried the way women cry when no one is watching and they do not have to perform their grief for anyone. She cried with her mouth open and no sound coming out because even now, even alone, some part of her was afraid of being heard. Her shoulders shook. Her ribs ached. She pressed her fist against her mouth and she sobbed into it, tasting salt and the metallic edge of her own rage. She cried for the woman she had been 3 years ago, the one who had believed him. She cried for the nursery she had been decorating in soft greens and yellows, imagining a family that was never going to exist. She cried for the Tuesday night dinners she had eaten alone while he was at 114 Beacon Street, pouring champagne for a woman named Chloe. She cried until there was nothing left, until her eyes were swollen, and her throat was raw, and the bathroom floor had warmed beneath her. Then the baby kicked, not a gentle flutter, a hard, sharp kick, right beneath her ribs, the kind that makes you gasp. Sophia's hands flew to her belly. She felt him move, felt the impossible reality of a whole person growing inside her, a person who depended on her completely, a person who had no idea that his father was a liar and a thief. She went still. She pressed both palms flat against the curve of her stomach, and she spoke out loud for the first time since Marcus had left. "Not for me," she whispered. "For you." She said it again, louder. "For you." She washed her face at the sink. The water was cold and it stung her swollen eyes. She looked at herself in the mirror, at the woman staring back, puffy-faced and exhausted and 7 months pregnant in a bathroom that cost more than most people's apartments. That woman did not look like someone who could dismantle an empire. She looked like someone who needed sleep. But her eyes were different. The softness was gone. In its place was something she had inherited from her father, the forensic accountant who had taught her that numbers never lie, and that the truth is always in the paperwork. It was clarity, cold, absolute clarity. She dried her face, hung the towel neatly on its rack, and unlocked the door. She walked to the kitchen, opened her personal laptop, and began making a list. The next morning, she called her sister. Grace Roman was 4 years older than Sophia, built like their mother, which meant short and solid and impossible to knock down. She was a nurse at a hospital in Worcester, the kind of woman who spent 12-hour shifts on her feet and still had the energy to yell at the television during Celtics games. She had never liked Marcus. She had smiled at the wedding, danced at the reception, and told Sophia privately in the bathroom that she hoped she was wrong about him. She was not wrong. "Soph," Grace said when she answered, "it's 7 in the morning. Are you okay? Is it the baby?" Sophia opened her mouth and nothing came out. She had rehearsed this in her head, had planned exactly what she would say. But now, hearing her sister's voice, the words dissolved. "Soph, talk to me." "He's cheating on me." Silence on the other end, not shocked silence. The silence of a woman who had been waiting for this call. "Tell me everything," Grace said. Sophia told her, the laptop, the calendar reminder, the condo at 114 Beacon Street, the 5-carat canary diamond ring, the first-class tickets to St. Bart's, and the bank statements, the legacy discretionary fund, the $150,000. Grace listened without interrupting, which was unlike her. When Sophia finished, the silence stretched. "I'm coming to Boston," Grace said. "I'm leaving right now." "No. Sophia, you cannot handle this alone. You're 7 months pregnant, and your husband is stealing from your baby. I know what he's doing, and I'm not going to handle it alone. I have a plan, but I don't need you to come fight him, Grace. I need you to remind me I'm not crazy." Another silence, then quieter. "You're not crazy, Soph. You're the smartest person I know, so be smart." "I'm going to be." "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to see his father." Grace exhaled. "Arthur? The old man? He's terrifying, Sophia." "I know. That's why I'm going to him. Marcus is afraid of 2 things in this world: losing money and his father. I can't take the money myself, but Arthur can." "And you think he'll help you?" "He's Marcus's father. Blood is blood." "Blood is blood," Sophia agreed. "But legacy is everything to Arthur Thorne, and Marcus is spending that legacy on a woman named Chloe Bennett." She could hear Grace thinking, could almost hear the gears turning. "You're going to turn the father against the son. I'm going to show the father what the son has been doing. If Arthur chooses to act on it, that's his decision. But I know Arthur Thorne. He will not let his grandson's inheritance be spent on a mistress. And if he doesn't help?" Sophia looked out the window at the Boston skyline. "Then I'll find another way. But he'll help. I'm sure of it." She was not sure of it. Not entirely. But she had learned something from 3 years of marriage to Marcus Thorne. She had learned that confidence is a performance, and that the person who performs it most convincingly wins. Marcus had taught her that, without ever meaning to. "Soph," Grace said, "be careful, please." "I will. And call me. Every day. I mean it. If you go dark on me, I'm driving to Boston, and I'm bringing Mom." Despite everything, Sophia almost smiled. "I'll call." She hung up and sat for a moment with the phone in her hand. The apartment was silent around her. Marcus's coffee cup was still on the counter from this morning, a ring of brown where he had set it down carelessly. She picked it up, washed it, dried it, and placed it back in the cabinet. Then she opened her contacts and scrolled to a name she had saved months ago, just in case. Alistair Harding, Harding and Associates, Private Counsel. She pressed call. The offices of Harding and Associates occupied the top floor of a brownstone on Beacon Hill, the kind of building that whispered money rather than shouting it. There was no flashy signage, no glass and chrome reception desk, just a small brass plate by the door and a staircase that creaked with the weight of old Boston privilege. Sophia arrived at 10 in the morning. She was wearing a simple black dress that accommodated her belly and flat shoes that made no sound on the hardwood floors. She carried a single folder, thin and plain, the kind you could buy at any office supply store. Inside it was the most dangerous collection of paper in Boston. Alistair Harding met her at the top of the stairs. He was exactly what she had expected from his reputation. Mid-60s, silver hair combed back with military precision, a face that could have been carved from the same granite as the building. His handshake was brief and dry. "Mrs. Thorne, please come in. He is already here." He, Arthur Thorne Sr. The office was a room designed to intimidate, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves lined with leather-bound volumes that were not decorative, a mahogany desk the size of a small boat, 2 leather chairs facing it, the kind that were comfortable enough to sit in for hours but positioned low enough that you always had to look up at the person behind the desk. Arthur Thorne Sr. was behind the desk. He did not stand when Sophia entered. He was 81 years old, but his eyes were the same pale, icy blue that Marcus had inherited, and they missed nothing. He was thin in the way of men who had once been powerful and were now being slowly reduced by time, but there was still steel in his posture and granite in his jaw. "Sophia," he said, not a greeting, an acknowledgement. "Arthur, sit." She sat. Harding remained standing by the window, his hands clasped behind his back like a general observing a negotiation he already knew the outcome of. "You called this meeting," Arthur said. "You said it was urgent and that it concerned my grandson." "It does." "You are carrying my grandson?" "I am." "Then speak." Sophia placed the folder on the desk and pushed it across the mahogany surface toward him. She did not explain what was inside. She did not frame it or soften it or provide context. She simply pushed it forward and waited. Arthur opened the folder with the slow deliberation of a man who has read 10,000 documents and knows that the thin ones are always the most dangerous. His eyes moved down the first page. Bank statements, wire transfers, account names and numbers. She watched his face. The jaw tightened first. Then the eyes narrowed. He turned to the second page. The lease for 114 Beacon Street. The fully furnished condo. The 2-year term. The corporate account it was paid from. He turned to the third page. The receipt from the jeweler. 5-carat canary diamond ring. $150,000. Reference number 884B. He turned to the fourth page. 2 first-class tickets to St. Bart's. Marcus Thorne and Chloe Bennett, departing in 3 weeks. Arthur closed the folder. He placed both hands flat on it, his knotted fingers spread wide. He stared at the closed folder for a long time. Sophia waited. She had learned patience from 3 years of marriage to his son. Then Arthur Thorne Sr. did something she did not expect. He pushed the folder back toward her. "My son is a fool," he said. His voice was low, rough, the voice of a man who had spent decades giving orders and was not accustomed to explaining himself. "But he is still my son. I will not destroy him over a woman." The words landed like stones in the quiet room. Sophia felt them hit, felt the brief, sickening lurch of her plan collapsing. Harding shifted slightly by the window, but said nothing. Sophia looked at the folder sitting between them on the desk. She looked at Arthur's face, set and resolute, the face of a patriarch who had spent his entire life protecting his bloodline, even the weakest branch of it. She understood, in that moment, that Arthur was not refusing because he did not believe her. He was refusing because admitting his son was capable of this would mean admitting he had failed. She did not beg. She did not cry. She had done her crying on the bathroom floor, and she was finished with it. "I'm not asking you to destroy your son, Arthur." He looked at her, his blue eyes sharp. "I'm asking you to protect your grandson." She leaned forward, her belly pressing against the edge of the desk. "This money, the $150,000 for the ring, the condo lease, the tickets, it didn't come from Marcus's salary. It didn't come from his personal account. It came from the Legacy Discretionary Fund, the fund you set up for your grandchildren. For this child." She placed her hand on her belly. "Marcus isn't just cheating on me, Arthur. He's stealing from your legacy. He's spending your grandson's future on a woman named Chloe Bennett." The room was very still. Sophia could hear the old clock on the mantelpiece ticking. She could hear Harding breathing by the window. Arthur's eyes had not left hers. Something was shifting behind them, something tectonic, the slow grinding of loyalty against duty. "Nathaniel," Sophia said quietly. Arthur blinked. "What? If it's a boy?" "I was going to name him Nathaniel." She paused. "Nathaniel Arthur Thorne. I thought you'd like the name." The silence that followed was the longest of Sophia's life. She watched Arthur Thorne Sr., the patriarch, the foundation, the man whose name was carved into the cornerstone of the building that housed his empire. She watched something crack behind the ice of his eyes. Not dramatically, not visibly, but it cracked. He pulled the folder back toward himself. He opened it again. This time he read every line, every number, every date, every name. When he reached the final page, the tickets to St. Bart's, he stared at the name Chloe Bennett for a long time. Then he looked up. His eyes were no longer conflicted. They were winter. "Chloe Bennett," he said. "That consultant from the art gallery he invested in." "Yes?" "He thinks I am a fool." "He thinks we both are," Sophia said. Arthur turned to Harding. The lawyer stepped forward, his face impassive. "What do you need, Sophia?" Arthur asked. She had rehearsed this moment in her head 100 times. In the bathroom, in the kitchen, at 2 a.m, when she could not sleep, and the baby was kicking, and Marcus was not home. "I don't want alimony," she said. "I don't want a settlement. I don't want a war in the tabloids." "Then, what do you want?" "I want what he was spending. I want my child's future back, the one Marcus was giving away." She leaned forward again. "Marcus is your CEO, Arthur, but you hold the controlling shares. He runs the company, but the company's assets, they're not his, are they?" A slow, cold smile spread across Arthur Thorne Sr.'s face. It was not a warm smile. It was the smile of a chess player who has just realized his opponent has blundered into checkmate. "No," he said, "they are not." Harding stepped forward and opened his own briefcase. He had clearly been prepared for this meeting to go exactly this way. "The structure of Thorne Capital is unique," Harding began, his voice precise and measured. "It was established by Arthur Sr. as an ironclad family trust. Marcus holds the title of CEO and draws a significant salary. He has voting rights on the board, but he does not personally own the core assets, the properties, the majority stock, the investment portfolios, the real estate holdings. They are all held by the Thorne Family Trust, and the trust's primary beneficiary is not Marcus. It's the next generation," Sophia said. "The Thorne bloodline. Arthur confirmed. Specifically, the next generation, your child. There is, Harding continued, a clause. We call it the morality clause. Arthur Sr. had it inserted when the trust was established. In the event my son turned out to be a fool, Arthur said, the clause states that if the CEO engages in behavior deemed a gross moral failing, or actions that bring disrepute upon the Thorn name and jeopardize the legacy, the Board of Trustees can vote to transfer stewardship. And who is the board? Sophia asked, though she already knew. Myself, Arthur said. Myself, Harding said. And my sister, Arthur added. She is in a convent in Italy. She votes exactly as I tell her to. Sophia sat back in her chair. The leather creaked. So he has nothing. He has a title, Harding said. A salary, a company car. The penthouse we live in, trust property. The Hamptons house, trust. The jet, trust. The air in the room was perfectly still. Sophia finally understood, with the kind of clarity that only comes after you have been crying on a bathroom floor at 2 a.m. Marcus was not a king. He was a prince living on an allowance, and he had just been caught stealing from the treasury. What do you propose, Sophia? Arthur asked. I want Harding to draft divorce papers. Simple. Clean. No alimony, no claim on Marcus's personal assets. Harding frowned slightly. He'll sign it in a heartbeat. You'll appear to be left with nothing. He'll think I'm left with nothing, Sophia corrected. He'll sign because he's arrogant. He'll sign because he wants to get rid of me so he can move in with her. He'll sign because he thinks he has all the power. And while he's signing, Arthur said, the plan crystallizing in the air between them, the board will be having an emergency meeting, Sophia finished. You will enact the morality clause. And do what? The clause allows the board to reassign stewardship of the trust to a more suitable guardian of the legacy. Sophia met Arthur's eyes. I am the mother of the sole beneficiary. I came to the head of the family, not to the tabloids. I am not asking for money. I am asking to protect what belongs to my son. Arthur looked at her for a long time. Then he looked at Harding. Draft it, he said. All of it. Harding was already writing. The next 4 weeks were the longest of Sophia's life. She had spent 3 years learning to live with a man who did not love her. Now she had to spend 4 weeks pretending she did not know it. The difference was that before, the ignorance had been real. Now it was a performance, and the stakes were everything. She discussed paint colors for the nursery. She went to her obstetrician appointments, sitting in the waiting room with Marcus beside her, his phone buzzing constantly, his thumb scrolling through messages she knew were from Chloe Bennett. She let him drive her home afterward, let him open the car door for her, in a display of chivalry that was as hollow as the man performing it. Everything looks perfect, Mrs. Thorne, her doctor would say. Just try to keep your stress levels down. I'm doing my best, doctor, Sophia would reply, smiling a smile that never once reached her eyes. In the quiet hours, the ones Marcus filled with Chloe, Sophia was at war. She met with Harding almost daily, sometimes in person, sometimes by phone, always when Marcus was safely elsewhere. The legal architecture was intricate. They could not simply hand Thorne capital to Sophia. That would trigger lawsuits, press coverage, and the kind of spectacle that Arthur Sr. despised above all things. Instead, they were building something elegant, a new entity, the Thorne Legacy Trust. On the day of the transfer, Harding explained, his pen moving across a legal pad with the speed of a man who charged $800 an hour and was worth every cent. The board will vote to move 100% of the core assets from the old Thorne family trust into this new entity. The properties, the stock, the art collection, the investment portfolios, Everything. And the old trust? Sophia asked. Will be left as an empty shell. It will contain exactly one asset, Marcus's employment contract as CEO. So he'll be the CEO of nothing. A king with no kingdom, Harding confirmed. The Thorne Legacy Trust, however, will be entirely under your control as sole trustee, for the benefit of your child. Sophia nodded. It was clean. It was legal. It was devastating. There is one more element, Harding said. The divorce. For this to work, Marcus must sign the papers before the board meets. He must believe he has won. If he discovers the asset transfer before he signs, he could contest it. He could bring lawyers. He could create chaos. He won't discover anything, Sophia said. You are certain? I know my husband, Alistair. He sees what he wants to see. And right now, he wants to see a boring, obedient, pregnant wife who doesn't ask questions. She was right. Marcus saw exactly what he wanted to see. Every evening, he would come home, toss his keys on the marble counter, kiss Sophia on the forehead or the cheek depending on his mood, and ask about the nursery or the doctor or the grocery list. These were not real questions. They were the verbal equivalent of checking a box. He did not listen to her answers. He was already thinking about wherever he was going next. The kitchen scene happened on a Thursday. Marcus came home early, which was rare. He seemed lighter than usual, almost giddy, the way he got when a deal was going well or when he had been drinking at lunch. He walked into the kitchen, where Sophia was chopping vegetables for a dinner she would eat alone, and he kissed her on the forehead. You're the best, Soph, he said. I don't deserve you. He said it casually, the way you might compliment a waitress on the coffee. Then he grabbed his keys from the counter and headed for the elevator. Don't wait up. Late meeting. The elevator doors closed. Sophia stood at the kitchen counter, the knife still in her hand. She stared at the half-chopped onion on the cutting board. Her hand began to tremble. Not with rage, with something worse. With the exhaustion of pretending, the bone-deep weariness of smiling at a man who could say those words, "You are the best. I don't deserve you," and then walk out the door to another woman's bed. A tear fell onto the cutting board, then another. She did not wipe them away. She let them fall, silently, onto the vegetables she was preparing for a meal he would never eat. Then she took a breath. She wiped her eyes. With the back of her hand, she finished chopping the onion. She scraped it into the pan with the flat of the knife. And she picked up her phone and called Harding. The timeline, she said. Are we on schedule? 2 more weeks, Mrs. Thorne. The documents will be ready by Friday the 23rd. Good. Make them airtight, Alistair. I don't want a single crack he can crawl through. There won't be. She hung up and went back to cooking her dinner. Alone. The near miss happened 10 days later. Sophia was in the living room, her laptop open, reviewing a draft of the asset transfer agreement that Harding had sent via encrypted email. She had become adept at hiding her work. She used a separate browser. She cleared her history every time. She never left documents open. But on this particular afternoon, she was on the phone with Harding, discussing a specific clause about the transfer of intellectual property rights, and she did not hear the elevator chime. Marcus walked in. She heard his footsteps on the marble. 3 seconds before he rounded the corner into the living room. 3 seconds was enough. She tapped the mute button on her phone and closed the laptop in a single, fluid motion. By the time Marcus appeared, she was sitting on the sofa with the laptop on the coffee table. Her phone held casually to her ear. Who was that? Marcus asked, tossing his jacket over a chair. Sophia's heart was hammering so loudly she was certain he could hear it. But her face was calm. Her voice was steady. The nursery designer, she said. I can't decide between the cream and the pale yellow. Marcus stared at her. His eyes, those thorn blue eyes, were sharp. Not suspicious exactly. More like the idle, predatory alertness of a man who was accustomed to catching people in lies because he told so many himself. He looked at her face. He looked at the laptop. The moment stretched. 5 seconds. 10. Long enough for the audience to stop breathing. Then Marcus shrugged. Go with yellow. Less boring. He grabbed his golf clubs from the closet by the elevator and left. Sophia did not move until she heard the elevator doors close. Then she gripped the edge of the sofa cushion until her knuckles turned white and exhaled, a long, shaking breath that seemed to empty her entire body. She picked up the phone and unmuted it. Alistair, I'm still here. That was close, Mrs. Thorne. I know. We should consider limiting our communications to, Alistair, I am not stopping. We have 10 days. I will be careful, but I am not stopping. There was a pause, then, with what might have been the ghost of admiration. Understood, Madam Trustee. Chloe Bennet, meanwhile, was growing bolder. The mistress had the confidence of a woman who believed she had already won. She was spending Marcus's money, or what she thought was Marcus's money, with the reckless joy of a lottery winner. She was redecorating the condo at 114 Beacon Street. She was booking salon appointments and spa weekends and shopping trips that she posted on social media with carefully cropped photos that showed luxury but never showed Marcus. And she was poking at Sophia. It started with small things. A box of maternity clothes arrived at the penthouse, addressed to Sophia, all in sizes comically too small. A petty, cruel little message. Sophia donated them without comment. Then came the text message. Sophia was sitting in the nursery, surrounded by paint samples and fabric swatches, when her phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. She opened it. Your husband does not love you. Stop embarrassing yourself and leave. Sophia stared at the screen. She knew, instantly and completely, that it was Chloe. The grammar was too careful, the cruelty too specific to be random. This was a woman who wanted Sophia gone and was impatient for it to happen. Sophia's jaw clenched. Her thumb hovered over the keyboard. She wanted to respond. She wanted to type words that would shatter Chloe Bennet's smug little world. She wanted to say, I know who you are. I know about the condo and the ring and the ticket. And I know what is coming for you. You are going to lose everything, and you are going to watch it happen. And there is nothing you can do to stop it. Instead, she deleted the message. She put her phone down. She picked it up again. She called Grace. I almost broke, she said. What happened? Sophia told her about the text. Grace was silent for a moment, and then her voice came through the phone, steady and sure. Almost doesn't count, Soph. You've got 2 more weeks. Hold the line. I'm holding. You're doing something most people couldn't do in 100 years. You're looking the man who betrayed you in the face every single day and smiling. That takes more strength than anything I've ever seen. It doesn't feel like strength. It feels like dying slowly. I know, but you're not dying. You're building, and in 2 weeks, it'll be done. Sophia closed her eyes. 2 weeks. 2 weeks, and then you never have to pretend again. She held the phone to her ear for a moment longer, listening to her sister breathe. Then she said goodnight, hung up, and went back to choosing paint colors for the nursery. Pale yellow. She had already decided. The Friday before the St. Bart's trip, everything was in place. Harding had drafted the divorce papers. They were almost offensively simple, irreconcilable differences. Both parties waive any claim to alimony or assets beyond their own personal bank accounts. No mention of infidelity, no mention of Chloe, no mention of the $150,000. Just 2 signatures and a clean break. It was the kind of document a man like Marcus Thorne would read with his ego and not his brain. He would see the absence of demands and conclude that he was getting everything. He would not ask why. He would not wonder what he was missing. He would sign because signing felt like winning, and Marcus Thorne needed to win. The board meeting was scheduled for Monday at 10 a.m. Harding had prepared the asset transfer documents. Arthur's sister in Italy had been briefed and had confirmed her proxy vote via secure video call. The pieces were set. All that remained was the Queen's move. Sophia packed a suitcase that evening. She chose the same bag she had arrived with 3 years ago, the one she had carried into this penthouse as a new bride, full of hope and art books, and the naive belief that Marcus Thorne loved her. The bag was small. It did not need to be large. She was not taking anything that belonged to the penthouse. She was not taking anything that could be contested or challenged or used against her. She was taking her clothes, her personal items, and the folder from Harding's office. Marcus came home at 7:30, buzzing with energy. The new fund had officially launched that day. The numbers were strong. He was riding the kind of high that only men who confuse activity with accomplishment can sustain. "Big night, Soph," he announced, loosening his tie as he walked through the front door. "The fund is out the gate and running. I'm thinking Le Ballier, that French place. I'll get us a reservation. You and me. Celebration." She was standing in the hallway outside the bedroom. The suitcase was behind her, just out of his line of sight. She was wearing a simple white blouse and dark pants. No jewelry, no makeup. She had chosen her appearance carefully. She wanted to look tired. She wanted to look defeated. She wanted to look like a woman who had given up. "I can't, Marcus." He stopped mid-stride. "What? Don't be boring. It's a big night." "I'm not being boring. I'm leaving you." The words hung in the air of the penthouse like smoke. Marcus's face went through a rapid succession of expressions: annoyance, confusion, disbelief, as if his brain was a machine that had received an input. It was not programmed to process. "What are you talking about?" "I'm leaving. Tonight." She walked past him into the living room. She moved slowly, deliberately, as if she had all the time in the world. She placed the manila envelope on the marble island. "Is this about the late nights? The business? Soph, you know how it is during launch week." "It's not about the business." She turned to face him, and here was the performance, the final act, the lie that would set her free. "I've met someone." The silence that followed was so complete that Sophia could hear the refrigerator humming in the kitchen. Marcus stared at her. His brain was visibly short-circuiting. He was a man who had spent 3 years assuming his wife was too bland, too passive, too pregnant to be anything other than exactly what he needed her to be. The idea that she might have a life, a desire, a secret of her own was so foreign to his understanding of the world that he could not process it. "You," he stammered. "You what?" "I've met someone," she repeated. Her voice was flat, controlled, deliberately stripped of emotion. "He wants me. He wants this baby. I'm going to him." "You dare." Marcus's confusion was twisting into something darker, but beneath the anger was something else: relief. She could see it in the way his shoulders loosened, the way his jaw unclenched. She was handing him the perfect exit. She was the one leaving. She was the one with a secret. He was the wronged party. "I don't want anything from you," Sophia said, sliding the envelope toward him. "Just my freedom. I've already signed. You sign, and I'm gone tonight. No lawyers, no fighting, no press. You can have your life. I'll have mine." Marcus snatched the envelope and tore it open. He read the terms. His eyes moved quickly, greedily, the way they moved when he was reviewing a deal he knew was in his favor. No alimony, no claim on the house, no claim on assets, no mention of infidelity. A clean, Unconditional surrender. He looked up. His eyes were bright. This is? You're just leaving? I am. But then something shifted, a flicker behind his eyes. Marcus Thorne was many things. Arrogant, reckless, unfaithful, but he was not entirely stupid. He had spent 15 years in finance. He knew that when a deal looked too good, there was always a catch. This is too clean, Sophia. Her blood went cold. She held her face still. You don't just walk away from everything, he continued, studying her. That's not who you are. You're careful. You're methodical. Your father was an accountant, for God's sake. You don't leave money on the table. This was the moment, the most dangerous 30 seconds of the entire plan. If he pulled on this thread, if he called a lawyer, if he hesitated long enough for his suspicion to harden into action, everything would collapse. Sophia let her eyes fill with tears. They were real tears. She did not have to manufacture them. She had 4 weeks of swallowed grief stored behind her eyes, and she released them now, not in a flood, but in a slow, trembling spillover that tracked down her cheeks and made her voice crack in exactly the right way. I'm 8 months pregnant, Marcus. Her voice broke on his name. I can barely sleep. I can't fight you. I don't have the energy. I don't have the strength. I just want peace. Please. She pressed her hand to her belly, the universal gesture of maternal vulnerability. Just let me go. Marcus looked at her. He saw a tired, broken, pregnant woman begging for mercy. He saw exactly what he wanted to see. A wife who had been defeated, who was giving up, who was retreating so completely that she was willing to walk away from millions just to avoid the fight. His suspicion dissolved. His relief returned, and beneath the relief, barely hidden, was the giddy realization that he was about to be free. Free of the boring wife, free of the pregnancy conversations, free of the pretense. Chloe was waiting. St. Bart's was booked. The future was wide open. He grabbed a pen from the counter. Fine, he spat, and the contempt in his voice was thick enough to taste. Good riddance. Don't you ever come to me for a dime. You understand? This child is. I'll have my lawyers contact you about custody. Whatever you say, Marcus. He signed his name with a flourish. The pen moved across the paper with the careless confidence of a man who believed he was closing the deal of a lifetime. He did not read the fine print. He did not call his attorney. He did not pause to consider why his careful, methodical, accountant's daughter, wife, was walking away from a fortune. He signed because he was arrogant. He signed because Chloe was waiting. He signed because the champagne at 114 Beacon Street was on ice. Sophia picked up her copy of the signed papers. She picked up her suitcase. She walked to the private elevator, her back straight, her steps measured, her face a mask of quiet defeat that hid the roaring triumph inside her chest. The elevator doors opened. She stepped inside. She turned to face Marcus one last time. He was standing at the marble island, the pen still in his hand, a grin of pure, unadulterated victory spreading across his face. He had won. He had everything. The doors chimed shut. Sophia Thorne stood alone in the elevator as it descended 42 floors. She did not smile. She did not celebrate. She placed her hand on her belly, felt her son kick, and whispered, "It's done, baby. We're free." The elevator reached the lobby. She walked through the marble atrium, past the doorman, and into the cool Boston night. A car was waiting. Harding had arranged it. The driver opened the door without a word. As the car pulled away from the building, Sophia allowed herself one look back at the penthouse windows, 42 floors up, glowing with the warm light of a home that had never been hers. Then she turned forward and did not look back again. Marcus Thorne poured himself a glass of 30-year-old Macallan from his bar in his penthouse. His bar. His penthouse. his life. He had never felt so free. He called Chloe before the first sip was finished. "It's done," he said, and his voice was brimming with the kind of laughter that only comes from a man who believes he has gotten away with everything. "What's done?" Chloe's voice was pouty, the practiced pout of a woman who knew exactly how to make a man feel guilty for being 5 minutes late. "She's gone, Chloe. The Ice Queen finally cracked. She left me." There was a squeal on the other end of the line, so loud that Marcus had to hold the phone away from his ear. "She left you? Oh my God. You mean we're free?" "Better than free. Get this. She's having an affair." "No. Can you believe it? She's pregnant with my kid and stepping out on me. That's why she didn't fight. She didn't want me finding out about her little secret." "Oh my God, Marcus. What about the divorce? Is she going to fight you for anything she already signed?" "Took nothing. Nothing, Chloe. No alimony, no claim on the house, no assets. She just wanted out." Chloe was screaming with delight, literally screaming, the way women scream in jewelry stores and movies. "I'm coming over," she said. "No, wait. You come here, come to our place. Let's celebrate properly. I'll be there in 20, Marcus said. He hung up and took a long, victorious sip of the Macallan. The scotch was smooth and expensive, and it tasted like freedom. He was free of the boring pregnant wife. He was free of the quiet, judgmental looks. He was free of the pretense of a marriage he had outgrown years ago. Chloe was waiting. St. Bart's was booked. The canary diamond was in his desk drawer, ready to go on her finger. He spent the weekend in a blissful fog at 114 Beacon Street. The condo was everything the penthouse was not. Warm, colorful, alive. Chloe had decorated it with the kind of enthusiastic excess that Marcus found charming in a mistress and would have found vulgar in a wife. There were throw pillows everywhere. There was a bar cart with crystal glasses and expensive gin. The bedroom had silk sheets and a view of the harbor. They celebrated. They drank champagne and made plans. They would redecorate the penthouse. They would host a welcome party. They would go public. No more sneaking around. No more hidden calendar reminders. Marcus Thorne and Chloe Bennett, Boston's newest power couple. "She was always such a downer," Chloe said, lounging on the new sofa in a silk robe, her legs draped over the armrest. "So dull, so quiet. You need someone vibrant, baby, someone who can keep up." "And I've got her," Marcus said, pulling the velvet box from his jacket pocket. He opened it. The 5-carat canary diamond caught the light and exploded into 1,000 golden sparks. Chloe's eyes went wide. Her mouth opened. For a moment, she was speechless, and Chloe Bennett was never speechless. "Marcus," she breathed. "This was always for you," he said. He slid it onto her finger. "From the moment I saw it." She stared at the ring on her hand, turning it back and forth, watching the light play through the stone. It was the most beautiful thing she had ever worn. It was a promise. It was proof. She had won. She had not won. 27 blocks away, in a modest hotel room that Harding had booked under a different name, Sophia Thorne sat in bed with her laptop open and a cup of tea growing cold on the nightstand. She was reviewing the final version of the asset transfer documents. Every line, every clause, every signature block. She had read it 4 times already, and she would read it a 5th time before she went to sleep. Her phone buzzed, a text from Grace. "How are you holding show up?" Sophia typed back, "Monday, that's not an answer." Sophia smiled, the first real smile in weeks. "It's the only answer that matters. Get some sleep, Soph. You've done everything you can." She closed the laptop and turned off the light. The hotel room was small and anonymous. and nothing like the penthouse. It was perfect. She lay on her side with a pillow between her knees to support her belly, and she listened to the sounds of the city through the window. Monday. Everything would change on Monday. She placed her hand on her stomach. The baby was quiet tonight, sleeping, his small body curled in the dark warmth of her, trusting her completely without knowing a single thing about the world he was about to enter. 2 more days, she whispered, and then you'll be safe. She closed her eyes, and for the first time in 4 weeks, she slept without dreaming. Monday morning, 10 o'clock. Marcus Thorne strolled into the Thorne Capital boardroom at 2 minutes past 10 with a coffee in one hand and his phone in the other. He was wearing his best suit, the Navy Tom Ford, because Monday board meetings were a performance, and he was the star. He was still riding the high of the weekend. Chloe had stayed over on Sunday night, and he had woken up in the condo with her perfume on the pillow and the canary diamond catching the morning light on the nightstand. He had kissed her goodbye, told her to buy herself something nice, and driven to work with the windows down and the radio playing. Life was good. Life was, in fact, perfect. He pushed open the boardroom door and stopped. The mood was wrong. The room, which was usually populated by 2 bored junior executives and a secretary taking minutes, was occupied by 3 people, and all 3 of them were looking at him with the kind of expression you see on the faces of doctors before they deliver bad news. His father, Arthur Thorne Sr., was at the head of the table. He had not occupied that chair in over 2 years. He was dressed formally, a dark suit and tie, as if he were attending a funeral. Alistair Harding was beside him. His briefcase was open. Documents were already spread on the table. The 3rd board member, Aunt Catherine's proxy, was on a secure video line, her face small and solemn in the screen. "You're late," Arthur said. It was not a greeting. It was an indictment. "Sorry, Father. Traffic." Marcus took his seat at the opposite end of the table, setting his coffee down with a casual thud. "All right, let's get this quarterly review going. We're looking at a strong 15% upside in the new fund, and I've got some thoughts on expanding into, we are not here to discuss the fund." The words fell like a gavel. Marcus's mouth stayed open for a moment, then closed. "We are here," Arthur continued, "to enact Article 7, Section 4 of the Thorne Family Trust Agreement." Marcus did not move. He did not blink. For a moment, the words did not register, the way a bullet passes through the body before the pain arrives. "The morality clause," Harding said, and his voice was perfectly level, the voice of a man reading the terms of surrender. The pain arrived. "What?" Marcus said. "What are you talking about?" "We are talking about 114 Beacon Street, apartment 6B, Harding said, reading from a document. "A fully furnished luxury condominium, leased in your name for 2 years, paid for by the Legacy Discretionary Fund." "We are talking about an unauthorized expenditure of $150,000 from the same fund," Harding continued, "for a personal jewelry purchase. We are talking about infidelity, gross misconduct, and the systematic misappropriation of funds designated for your unborn child." Marcus's face had gone from tan to white in approximately 8 seconds. You've been spying on me. This is Sophia. She told you. That vindictive, manipulative—" "Mrs. Thorne provided documentation, yes," Arthur said, cutting him off. "She came to me as the head of this family, to protect her child's inheritance, an inheritance you were spending on your mistress." "I'll pay it back," Marcus stammered. "It was a mistake, a momentary lapse. Father, you have to understand." "I understand perfectly." Arthur's voice was granite. "The board has before it a motion to enact the morality clause and transfer 100% of the assets from the Thorne Family Trust to the newly formed Thorne Legacy Trust, effective immediately." All in favor? Aye, said Arthur. Aye, said Harding. Aye, said the small, clear voice from the speaker. Arthur picked up a pen and signed. The motion passes. Marcus was hyperventilating. His chest was rising and falling rapidly, his hands gripping the edge of the table. What does that mean? Transfer assets? What assets? I run this company. You run this company in name, Harding said, adjusting his glasses. As of this moment, the Thorne Family Trust is a shell. Its assets, this building, the company name, the investment funds, the properties, the jet, the art collection, everything are now the sole property of the Thorne Legacy Trust. You are the CEO, Harding paused, of nothing. You can't do this. Marcus's voice cracked. This is my company, my name. It is my name, Arthur corrected, standing. He was old, he was frail, but in this moment, he was every inch the man who had built an empire from nothing. And you are no longer worthy of it. What am I left with? Per your employment contract, Harding said, checking a folder, you are entitled to your personal salary of $250,000 per year. You have your 401k, your personal checking account, your Lexus. The penthouse, the Bentley, the Hamptons estate, and the jet are property of the new trust. You will be expected to vacate the penthouse by end of day. $250,000. It sounded like a fortune to anyone who was not Marcus Thorne, but Marcus's lifestyle cost that much in 2 months. The restaurants, the clothes, the memberships, the gifts. He was a man who spent money the way other men breathed, constantly, unconsciously, and never once considering that it might stop. Sophia, he choked out, she planned this. She protected her son, Arthur said. He turned and walked toward the door. Harding followed with his briefcase. Which is more than you did. The door closed behind them. Marcus sat alone at the long table in the boardroom of the company that bore his name, but was no longer his. His phone buzzed. He looked at it. A picture from Chloe, a wedding dress on a mannequin in a store window. A heart emoji. A question mark. He stared at the picture, then he stared at the empty boardroom, and for the first time in his life, Marcus Thorne understood what it meant to have nothing. Chloe Bennett was having the best morning of her life. She had woken up in the condo with the canary diamond on her finger and the sun streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows. She had made herself a cappuccino with the Italian espresso machine Marcus had bought for the apartment, and she had spent a luxurious hour browsing wedding dresses online. The Vera Wang was her favorite, strapless, ivory silk, $28,000. She had screenshotted it and sent it to Marcus with a heart emoji. He was in his boring board meeting, but he would see it. He would smile. He would probably buy it for her today. She was booking a hair appointment when her phone rang. Marcus's name on the screen. She answered with a purr. Baby, I was just thinking about you. I saw the perfect Vera Wang and... Shut up, Chloe. His voice was unrecognizable. Thin, reedy, terrified. The voice of a man standing in a building that was on fire and realizing there was no exit. What? What's wrong? You sound awful. He knows. He knows everything. My father. He knows. Knows what? About us? So what? Marcus, you're a grown man. You're divorced now. Who cares what your daddy thinks? You don't understand. She could hear him pacing, his shoes squeaking on marble. The company. It's not mine. It was never mine. What are you talking about? You're the CEO. I'm the CEO of nothing. Bithium. The words exploded through the phone, loud enough that she pulled it away from her ear. It's a trust, Chloe. A trust. He invoked a clause. He took it all away. The house, the cars, the money, all of it. Chloe sat down on the sofa. The beautiful, expensive, silk-upholstered sofa that she had picked out herself. She sat down hard. What do you mean, all of it? Her voice had gone very quiet. You're still rich, Marcus. You're Marcus Thorne. I have my salary, that's it. $250,000 a year. He cut me off. $250,000. Chloe's brain did the math before her heart caught up. That was fine. That was more than fine for most people. But it was not penthouse money. It was not private jet money. It was not 5-carat canary diamond money. It was not the life she had been promised. But this condo, she whispered, looking around the apartment at the furniture she had chosen, the art she had hung, the champagne glasses still sitting on the coffee table from last night's celebration. The lease is terminated. It's in the trust's name. They're taking it back, all of it. The car? Company lease. They're picking it up this afternoon. No. Chloe said it reflexively, the way you say no to a diagnosis, not as a protest, but as a denial. No, you're lying. This is a joke. It's not a joke, Burkham, Marcus roared. That snake Sophia planned this. She's been working with my father for weeks. She went to him behind my back. She showed him the bank statements, the condo, the ring, the tickets, everything. Chloe's online shopping cart was still open on her laptop. The Vera Wang dress, the salon appointment, the honeymoon resort in the Maldives she had been pricing. An alert popped up from her banking app. The platinum card declined. Marcus, she said, and her voice was trembling now, the trembling of a woman watching her entire future dissolve in real time. The card. It's not working. Of course it's not working. It's a company card. Everything is a company card. It's all gone, Chloe. The room was spinning. The cappuccino she had made that morning was sitting on the counter, half finished, and she stared at it and thought, that espresso machine is not mine either. There's a meeting, Marcus said, his voice dropping. At Harding's office, noon. I have to sign some kind of waiver. If I don't, they'll take even the salary. I'm going there now. I'm going to stop this. I'm coming with you. Chloe, I don't think that's... I'm coming with you. She was already grabbing her keys, her purse. The red dress hanging on the bathroom door. She was not losing this. She had earned this life. She had spent 2 years smiling at a man she found boring half the time, laughing at his jokes, pretending his stories about hedge fund strategies were interesting. She had invested her youth and her beauty and her time, and she was not going to watch it evaporate because some quiet little pregnant wife had decided to play dirty. She was going to that meeting. She was going to look Sophia Thorne in the eye, and she was going to fight. The boardroom at Harding and Associates was a room built for endings. Dark wood, leather-bound books that smelled of dust and precedent, a table long enough to seat 12 but occupied by 4. Sophia was at the head of the table. She looked different from the woman Marcus had watched walk out of the penthouse 3 days ago. That woman had been defeated, tearful, broken. This woman was wearing a tailored dark blue maternity dress that fit her like armor. Her hair was pulled back. Her face was composed. She was flanked by Alistair Harding and 2 additional lawyers whose faces were professionally blank. Arthur Sr. was on a video screen mounted on the wall, watching, his eyes pale and unblinking. The door burst open at 11:14. Marcus came in first, his suit rumpled, his face blotchy and red. He looked like he had slept in his car. Behind him, like a furious shadow, came Chloe Bennett. She was wearing spike heels and the red dress, full makeup, hair down. She looked like she was going to a cocktail party, not a legal proceeding, and the contrast with the somber room was jarring. "Sophia!" Marcus yelled, and his voice cracked on the second syllable. "You thief! You conniving thief! You can't do this!" Sophia did not flinch. She looked at him with the mild, distant expression of a woman observing a tantrum in a grocery store. Marcus, you're late again. Please sit down. Or don't, it doesn't matter. Don't you dare talk to him like that. Chloe shrieked, pointing a manicured finger at Sophia. You think you can just steal his money? You vindictive Miss Bennet. Alistair Harding's voice cut through the hysteria like a blade through silk. You are not party to this meeting. You have no legal standing. I must ask you to leave. I'm not going anywhere, Chloe snapped. This is my life you're destroying. Sophia looked at Chloe for the first time. She studied her the way she used to study paintings in the gallery, with professional detachment, assessing composition and value. On the contrary, Miss Bennet, Sophia said. Her voice was level, controlled, almost gentle, which made it worse. You are the expense, the line item that brought everything to light. You were never part of the life at all. The words hit Chloe like a physical blow. She opened her mouth, and nothing came out. Harding pushed a thick document across the table toward Marcus. This is a non-disclosure agreement and a waiver of litigation, Mr. Thorne. It stipulates that in exchange for your continued, though diminished, salary of $250,000 per year, you will not contest the board's decision or bring any lawsuit against the Thorne Legacy Trust, its trustee, or Thorne Capital. Marcus stared at the document. His eyes were scanning the pages, but Sophia could tell he was not reading. He was just moving his eyes across the words, the way a drowning man moves his arms, not to swim, but because the body does not know how to stop. Trustee, he said, the word catching in his throat. Who is the trustee? I am, Sophia said. 3 syllables, 2 words, and every bit of power Marcus Thorne had ever believed he possessed shifted across the table and settled on the shoulders of the pregnant woman sitting at its head. You control everything, Marcus whispered. The house, the company, the... On behalf of our son, Sophia corrected. Your father's grandchild. The only thing that matters in all of this. The room went quiet. Not the quiet of an empty room, but the pressurized quiet of a space where something fundamental has changed. Marcus slumped in his chair. He looked old. He looked small. He looked exactly like what he was. A man who had mistaken his father's empire for his own and had gambled it away on ego and appetite. Chloe stopped screaming. That was the moment that would stay with everyone in the room. Not Marcus's collapse, which was pathetic. Not Sophia's composure, which was magnificent. But Chloe's silence, the sudden, absolute cessation of noise. She looked down at her hand, at the canary diamond on her finger, the 5-carat stone that had been the symbol of her victory, the proof that she had won the prize, that the boring, pregnant wife was finished, and Chloe Bennet was the future. Then she looked at Marcus. He was slumped in his chair, staring at the table. He did not look at her. He did not reach for her. He did not say her name. He did not do any of the things a man does for a woman he loves when that woman's world is falling apart. He just sat there, consumed by his own loss, his own humiliation, his own collapse. And in that silence, Chloe understood. He had never loved her. She was a purchase. She was a line on a budget sheet. She was the thing he bought to feel powerful, the way he bought the suits and the cars and the bottles of 30-year-old scotch. She was not a partner. She was not even a mistress. She was a luxury item. And now that the money was gone, she was being returned. She looked at Sophia, standing, pregnant, calm, holding everything. She looked back at the ring. Harding's voice cut through the silence. The ring, Miss Bennet, was purchased with funds from the Legacy Discretionary Fund. As such, it is an asset of the Thorne Legacy Trust. You will be expected to return it. A courier will be at the trust's apartment, this afternoon to collect it. Chloe's face went blank. Not angry, not sad, not defiant, just empty. The way a house looks after the furniture has been removed. The way a bank account looks after the last withdrawal. Empty. Her legs gave out. She did not faint dramatically, the way women faint in old movies, with a hand to the forehead and a graceful swoon. She simply stopped holding herself up. Her knees buckled, her body folded. She went down onto the Persian rug like a puppet whose strings had been cut, a heap of red silk and broken dreams and a borrowed diamond ring that no longer belonged to her. The room was still for 3 seconds. 5. 8. Marcus did not stand up, but he did not rush to her side. He did not call her name. He just looked at her, sprawled on the floor, and then he looked away. He picked up the pen. His hand was shaking, but he picked it up, and he signed the NDA. Sophia watched it all. She watched the mistress collapse. She watched her husband sign away his last shred of power, and she felt nothing. No, that was not true. She felt something. She felt finished. "Mr. Harding," she said, and her voice was steady. "Please call 911 for Miss Bennet, and security for Mr. Thorne. He is no longer allowed on the premises." She picked up her purse. She placed her hand on her belly. She walked to the door of the boardroom, past the lawyers, past the unconscious woman on the floor, past the broken man in the expensive suit. She did not look back. 3 hours after her collapse, in the boardroom, Chloe Bennet was discharged from Massachusetts General Hospital. The diagnosis was panic attack and dehydration. They gave her a paper cup of water, a pamphlet about managing anxiety, and a bill she could not pay. She used her phone to call a rideshare. The cost of the ride, $11.40, made her wince. 3 days ago, she would not have noticed. 3 days ago, she would have added a $20 tip without thinking about it. 3 days ago, the platinum card worked. She had to get back to 114 Beacon Street. She had to get her things, her clothes, her jewelry, the ring. The canary diamond was still on her finger. She had not taken it off in the hospital, had curled her hand into a fist when the nurse tried to remove it for the blood pressure cuff. It was hers. Marcus had given it to her. It was the one thing she had left. The glass entrance of 114 Beacon Street gleamed in the afternoon sun. Chloe's key fob, the one she used to flash with such casual confidence, blinked red when she pressed it against the reader. Access denied. The doorman, a man named Frank, who had always greeted her warmly, who had always held the door, who had always accepted her generous Christmas tips, stepped outside. His face was a mask of professional regret. "Miss Bennet, I'm afraid I can't let you up." "Question." "Frank, what are you talking about? I live here." "My apologies. We received a notification this morning from the leasing agent. The tenant of 6B has been changed. Your name is no longer on the resident list." "That's ridiculous. Marcus Thorne." "The lease is held by a corporate trust, not Mr. Thorne. I'm sorry." He pointed to a single medium-sized cardboard box sitting on the sidewalk near the valet stand. It was taped shut. "A courier and a security guard from the trust's representatives were here this morning. They packed your personal effects. The rest of the apartment's contents were, and I'm quoting, assets of the trust." Chloe walked to the box on legs that felt like they belonged to someone else. She tore it open. Inside was her toothbrush, her drugstore makeup, a few changes of clothes, the ones she had brought with her from her old apartment, not the designer pieces Marcus had bought her, her high school yearbook. A pair of sneakers she had not worn in 2 years. It was the box of a college student, not a future billionaire's wife. "Where is the jewelry?" she whispered, her hands rummaging frantically. The bags, the ring, the canary diamond. The gentleman from the trust took inventory. Any items purchased by trust funds were returned to the trust. That included the ring that was on the vanity. She looked at the diamond on her finger, the one she was wearing. The courier had taken the spare one from the vanity, the one Marcus had not yet given her, but this one, the one on her hand, was hers. Her phone buzzed, a text from a number she did not recognize. Miss Bennett, this is a representative of the Thorn Legacy Trust. Please be advised that the canary diamond ring currently in your possession was purchased with trust funds, reference number 884B. A courier will arrive at your location within the hour to collect it. Your cooperation is appreciated. Chloe stared at the screen. Then she stared at the ring. Then she sat down on the curb, right next to the valet stand where she used to pull up in the convertible that was never hers, and she cried. Not angry tears, not dramatic tears. The slow, hollow tears of a woman who had built her entire life on someone else's money and was now sitting on concrete with a cardboard box and a phone that would soon be disconnected because the bill was on the platinum card that no longer worked. The courier arrived 40 minutes later. He was polite, professional. He held out a small velvet pouch. Chloe pulled the ring from her finger. It came off easily. It had never really fit. Dump. When Sophia returned to the penthouse that evening, the first thing she noticed was the silence. Not the heavy, oppressive silence of the past 3 years, the silence of a woman walking on eggshells in her own home. This was different. This was the silence of an empty room, clean air, open space, the absence of Marcus's cigars and cologne and ego. A man from the security team was finishing the installation of a new control panel by the elevator. You're all set, Mrs. Thorne. No one gets in without this fob or a direct voice authorization from you. Thank you, Michael. She walked through the apartment. Every room still smelled faintly of Marcus, of the expensive aftershave and the whiskey and the particular staleness of a man who occupied space without inhabiting it. She opened windows. She let the October air in, cold and sharp, and knew she went to Marcus's game room, the shrine to his arrested adolescence. 3 massive televisions, a black leather pit sofa, a fully stocked bar with garish neon signs, a glass-walled humidor that stank of smoke and entitlement. She made 2 phone calls. The first was to a demolition crew. I'd like to schedule a full gut renovation. Everything out down to the studs. The bar, the electronics, the everything. I want it sterile by tomorrow morning. The second was to a nursery designer. I'd like to design a room. The theme is quiet strength, pale yellows, natural woods, and the softest carpet you can find. And one entire wall. I'd like it to be a mural. The Boston skyline, but seen from a park, not from a penthouse. She hung up and stood in the empty game room, her hand on her belly. The baby kicked. She smiled. Your room, little one. Over the following weeks, Sophia moved through the wreckage of her old life with the methodical precision of a woman who had been raised by a forensic accountant. She found the rot in Thorn Capital's books, the vanity projects, the consulting fees to shell companies with names like CB Ventures, the personal expenses disguised as corporate overhead. She documented everything. She dismantled everything. She did not seek revenge. She sought order. She worked with Arthur and Harding to restructure the company. She hired a new president for day-to-day operations, a quiet, brilliant man from MIT named David Grant, who had a reputation for ethics and sustainable growth. I don't want to be the biggest company, she told him on his first day. I want to be the strongest. No more pirate raids. We are building a lighthouse. She sold Marcus's ostentatious wine collection. The proceeds went into Nathaniel's education fund. She found the second canary diamond ring in Marcus's desk. the one he had planned to give Chloe in St. Bart's. She sent it to Harding with a note. Sell it. Put the money in the college fund. She was not a CEO. She was an owner, and there was a difference. 3 weeks before her due date, Sophia was in a board meeting reviewing quarterly projections when she felt the first sharp contraction. She paused mid-sentence. The room went quiet. David Grant looked at her with concern. David, she said, her voice perfectly calm, you will have to table the discussion on the Green Energy Fund until Monday. My son appears to be on a deadline. Nathaniel Arthur Thorne was born at 4:02 a.m. on a Tuesday. 7 pounds, 8 ounces, a shock of dark hair, his mother's eyes. Sophia held him to her chest, exhausted and powerful, and completely alone by choice in the best private suite of the hospital. She did not want visitors. She did not want flowers. She wanted silence and her son and the feeling of his small, perfect weight on her chest. There was a soft knock on the door. Arthur Thorne Sr. stood in the doorway. He looked older than she had ever seen him, frailer. His suit hung loosely on his narrowed frame, and he leaned on a cane she had not seen before. But his eyes were the same, pale, sharp, alive. Sophia. Arthur, come in. Meet your grandson. He walked slowly to the bedside. He stared at the small, swaddled bundle with an expression she had never seen on his face before. Not sternness, not authority, something raw and unguarded, a vulnerability so profound that it seemed to belong to a completely different man. He is small, Arthur said gruffly. They all are at first. May I? Sophia gently passed him the child. Arthur's hands, the same hands that had signed billion-dollar deals and crushed competitors and built an empire, fumbled with the blanket. He held the baby awkwardly, as if holding something infinitely precious and terrifyingly fragile. He has the thorn chin, Arthur said, his voice thick. He has my eyes, Sophia replied softly. Good. Arthur cleared his throat, but not before she saw the glisten. He'll need the vision. He held the baby for a long moment. Then he handed Nathaniel back with a reverence that made Sophia's own eyes sting. You saved this family, girl. You saved him. I just did what a mother had to do. Arthur reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small, old-fashioned velvet box. Sophia opened it. Inside was a key, brass, worn smooth by decades of handling. My wife's, Elizabeth's. It's a key to our personal safe deposit box at the bank on State Street. It contains her bonds, her personal jewelry, and the original handwritten charter for this company. They are not part of the trust. They are family. They are now yours and his. Sophia held the key in her palm. The cold metal warmed against her skin. Thank you, Arthur. He nodded. He placed one hand on the edge of the bassinet, looking at his grandson. Then he turned and walked to the door, his cane tapping softly on the hospital floor. Arthur, Sophia called. He stopped. He's going to know you, I promise. The old man stood still for a moment. His back was to her. She could not see his face, but she saw his shoulders rise and fall with a single, deep breath. Good night, Sophia, he said, and left. 2 years later. The penthouse was unrecognizable. The cold marble and glass had been softened by thick rugs and warm lighting. The walls were lined with bookshelves filled with children's books and family photographs. There were toys in the living room, a wooden train set, and a stuffed elephant, and a collection of blocks in every color. The kitchen smelled like something baking. The air smelled like home. Tonight, the apartment was full. It was the first annual fundraiser for the Nathaniel Thorne Foundation for Children. The rooms were filled with Boston's real power, not the loud, flashy crowd Marcus had once entertained, but the quiet kind. Surgeons from Mass General, directors of the Museum of Fine Arts, university presidents. Old money families who had once looked down on the Thorne name as crass and knew and now spoke of Sophia with genuine respect. Sophia stood by the fireplace in a simple, elegant dark green dress. She looked different from the woman who had stood at these same windows 3 years ago, holding cold tea and wondering where her husband was. She looked like someone who knew exactly who she was. She tapped a glass for attention. "Good evening," she said, and her voice carried through the room with the confidence of a woman who had learned that the quietest voice in the room is often the most powerful. "Thank you all for coming. The Thorne name, for a long time, was associated with aggressive acquisition, with winning at any cost. Tonight, I hope we can begin to associate it with something new, with responsibility, with community, with a legacy." She paused. "Not a legacy of steel and glass, but of health, of art, and of a better, safer future for all of our children." The room erupted in warm, genuine applause. Not the polite clapping of obligation, but the real, sustained applause of people who meant it. In a quiet corner of the room, Arthur Thorne Sr. sat in a wheelchair. He was thinner now, smaller, the empire of his body following the same trajectory as all empires. But his eyes were sharp, and on his lap, sleeping with the absolute trust of a 2-year-old who has never known fear, was Nathaniel. Arthur watched Sophia speak. A look of profound, unshakable peace settled across his face. The legacy was secure. Not the company, not the money, not the name, the legacy that mattered. The boy on his lap, the woman across the room. The guests began to leave. Sophia moved through the room, saying goodnight, accepting compliments, shaking hands. Grace was there, standing by the bar in a dress she had clearly bought for the occasion, looking proud and slightly out of place, and not caring about either. "Nice party, Soph," Grace said. "Nice dress, Grace. Don't get used to it. These shoes are killing me." They laughed, and it was the kind of laugh that only sisters share, the laugh that contains years of shared bathrooms and borrowed clothes and 3 a.m. phone calls when the world feels too heavy to carry alone. "You did it," Grace said, quieter now. "We did it. You held the line. You held the line. I just yelled at you over the phone. That's what I needed." The last guest left at 11. The caterers cleared the trays and the glasses and the napkins. The apartment settled into its nighttime quiet, the particular hush of a home where a child is sleeping. Sophia walked to the corner where Arthur sat. He had fallen asleep, his hand resting on Nathaniel's back, his breathing slow and steady. She gently lifted her son from his grandfather's lap. Nathaniel stirred, murmured something that was not quite a word, and settled against her shoulder. She carried him across the room to the great window. The Boston skyline was spread before her, glittering against the dark sky. The city looked different now, not like a cage, not like a prison of glass and ambition. It looked like a map of possibility. She thought about the woman she had been the night she sat on the bathroom floor and cried, the woman who had whispered, "Not for me, for you," and meant it. She thought about the Tuesday morning when she had read a calendar notification on a laptop that was not hers and had felt her world crack open. She thought about Grace on the phone saying, "You are the smartest person I know, so be smart." She thought about Arthur pushing the folder back across the desk and saying, "He is still my son," and the moment she had convinced him that protecting his grandson was not the same as destroying his child. She thought about the 4 weeks of pretending, the kitchen scene, standing alone with a knife in her hand and tears on the cutting board, the near miss, 3 seconds between the elevator chime and disaster, the text from Chloe that she had deleted instead of answered, because answering would have felt good for 5 seconds and cost her everything. She thought about Marcus signing the divorce papers with a flourish, grinning, believing he had won the greatest deal of his life. She thought about Chloe, collapsing on the Persian rug in a red dress, a heap of borrowed dreams, and a ring that was never hers. She did not think about them with hatred. She did not think about them with satisfaction. She thought about them the way you think about a storm that is past. It happened. It was terrible. It is over. She reached down and opened the drawer of the console table beneath the windows. Inside, folded neatly, was the divorce paper, the thin, ordinary sheet that had started everything. Marcus's signature was still there, confident and careless, the signature of a man who had never once considered that the woman standing in front of him might be smarter than he was. Sophia held the paper for a moment. She ran her thumb across the ink of his name. Then she walked to the small shredder in the corner of the room, the one she used for trust documents and confidential correspondence, and she fed the paper in. The machine hummed. The paper disappeared. The signature, the evidence, the last physical trace of the marriage she had quietly, precisely, and completely dismantled, was gone. She did not need it. She did not need proof. She did not need trophies or reminders or souvenirs of the war she had won. The war was over, and the woman who had fought it was not the same woman who had started it. That woman had been afraid. This woman was not. She walked back to the window. Nathaniel was heavy and warm against her chest, his breath soft and even, his small hand curled around the collar of her dress. She looked at their reflection in the glass, her face and his, side by side, suspended against the Boston skyline. The city glittered below, a sea of diamonds, none of them canary. "We don't look back, baby," she whispered to her sleeping son. "We just build." 27 miles away, in a third-floor walk-up in Somerville, with a leaky faucet and a radiator that clanked all night, Marcus Thorne sat alone at a kitchen table covered in overdue bills. Chloe was at work, a late shift at the restaurant where she seated families who did not look at her twice. On the table, face down, was a photograph. Nathaniel at 3 months old, dark hair, his mother's eyes. Sophia's lawyer had sent it. Marcus had looked at it once. He had not been able to look at it again. From the other room, the front door opened. Chloe's keys hit the counter. Her shoes hit the floor.
Trying this.
"Marcus, the electric bill is overdue again." He did not answer. He sat in the yellow light of the kitchen, staring at the back of the photograph, and he listened to the sound of the life he had chosen closing in around him. Sophia Thorne did not scream. She did not beg. She did not threaten. She quietly filed for divorce, and when the dust settled, the mistress was on the floor and the empire was in the hands of the woman everyone had underestimated. Marcus and Chloe thought they were winning a prize, but they forgot to check who owned the trophy. Some wars are won with armies. Hers was won with a signature and a silence that shook the walls. This content was carefully researched, developed, and manually edited by our team to deliver meaningful stories with valuable life lessons. Every narrative is crafted to entertain, inspire, and empower our audience. We believe that great stories can change lives, and we are committed to bringing you content that matters. Thank you for being part of our community.